Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Tyler Rowe. I'm 28 years old now, sitting in the executive lounge of Halcyon FinTech Group in downtown Chicago, my name etched in chrome on the corner office door. You see the polished glass, the skyline behind me, the quiet hum of success. But rewind 10 years, and you'd see a young man standing alone at a dinner table, holding back tears while his family toasted my twin brother's future, paid for in full, while mine was left hanging by a thread. Growing up in Evanston, Illinois, our house stood like a monument to privilege. My parents, Julian and Karen Rowe, owned Rowe Capital Partners, one of the Midwest's top investment firms. Our home was all white marble and brushed steel, the kind of place that reeked of money and expectations. And in that house were two sons, me and my twin brother, Preston. Now let me tell you about Preston. He was the golden boy. Same age, same face, but that's where the similarities stopped. Preston had the charm, the swagger, the ability to light up a room with a grin. I was the quieter one. Always reading. Always building things, budget apps, predictive tools, back when I was 15. But to our parents, Preston was the brand. I was the back-end support. Always there, but never seen. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It screamed from the walls of our house like a siren. At 16, Preston got a brand new Audi. I got a refurbished Chromebook. For his 17th birthday, a catered yacht party on Lake Michigan. For mine, a stack of SAT prep books and a "keep working hard" speech. I should have grown bitter. But back then, I just tried harder. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I did enough, they'd see me. They didn't. The moment that broke me wasn't grand. It was a quiet Sunday night at dinner. Senior year. Preston and I had both gotten into Columbia University, same major, financial engineering. We'd worked for it in our own ways. I'd earned a 4.0 GPA, built an app that helped local businesses manage cash flow. Preston. He coasted in with a 3.3 GPA and a flashy essay ghostwritten by one of Dad's PR assistants. Still, we both got in. That night, the table was set with rosemary lamb and Mom's finest china. I remember the soft jazz playing and the wine glasses clinking. Dad raised his glass. To Preston. Columbia University's next Wall Street kingpin. They all cheered. Even Grandma Jean. Then Preston turned to me. What about Ty? He got in too. The silence was sharp. Then Dad chuckled. Of course. Tyler, you always were resourceful. You'll figure it out. He turned to Preston. We've already wired your first year's tuition. You'll be staying at that nice place we toured near campus. I blinked. Wait. What? What about me? I asked. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. Dad didn't look up from his plate. You've always been independent. We're not worried. Loans, scholarships, part-time jobs. It builds character. Preston looked at me, guilt creeping into his expression. But he didn't speak. Mom chimed in, like it was nothing. You're good with numbers, Tyler. You'll be just fine. I didn't touch my food that night. I stared at my fork while the lamb got cold. And when I got up and left the table, no one stopped me. That was the night I learned something brutal: love, in our house, was conditional. And I didn't meet the conditions. That night, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like the air in the room had turned to cement. I kept playing their words over and over in my head. You're independent. You'll be fine. Loans. Scholarships. It builds character. They didn't even flinch while saying it. As if it were normal to pay for one twin's Ivy League education and tell the other to hustle for scraps. I wasn't angry yet. Not then. At first, I was just hollow. Like someone had scooped my heart out and replaced it with silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there with this numb realization that in my own family's eyes, I was optional. That week, I wrote down every scholarship deadline I could find. Financial aid, diversity funds, merit-based grants, anything. I applied to over 40 programs. I wrote essays until my hands cramped. I took on tutoring gigs. I even sold my custom-built budgeting app to a small startup for a few $100, just to afford a plane ticket to New York for orientation. Meanwhile, Preston posted Instagram stories of his new apartment, the penthouse one dad had paid for, the caption reading, "NYC, your future hedge fund boss has arrived, clinking glasses fire." I wanted to be happy for him. But every like on his post felt like a slap. When we got to Columbia, the difference in our lives was immediate. Preston walked into campus like he owned it, rolling up in designer sneakers and designer confidence. Me? I moved into a cramped shared dorm, took a job at the campus library, and skipped meals more often than I'll admit, stretching ramen packs into dinner for days. Still, I kept going. I took 18 credit hours and worked 25 hours a week, stocking books and scanning IDs. My nights were lit by the blue glow of my laptop as I coded financial forecasting tools and pored over quant models. I wasn't living, I was surviving. And every day, I watched Preston waste everything he'd been handed. He skipped lectures. Threw parties in his apartment. I once found him passed out in the library lounge, smelling like vodka, having not studied for a midterm we both had the next day. He copied my notes more than once, always with that same smug laugh. "Come on, Ty. You're the brains. I'm just the face." I didn't say anything. I never did. I just swallowed the frustration like I always had. But the truth is, I hated him for it. Not for being the favorite. But for wasting it. Wasting everything I would have given blood for. The lowest point came in sophomore year, midterms week. I was running on 4 hours of sleep across 3 days. I was working nights, then studying at sunrise. My body gave out in the middle of a macroeconomics exam. I collapsed right there at my desk, and the next thing I knew, I was in the student clinic, hooked to and for. Olivia, a girl from our econometrics class, sat beside me holding my hand. "You're not a machine, Tyler," she whispered. "You can't keep running on fumes." I turned my face to the wall, too ashamed to speak. She didn't say anything else, she just stayed. That night, after she left, I cried for the first time in years. Not because I was tired. Not because I was broke. But because I finally admitted to myself. They didn't love me the way they loved Preston. And no amount of hard work could change that. I don't know if I would have kept pushing if it wasn't for Olivia. She didn't treat me like I was broken. She saw me. Not as Preston's brother, not as the smart twin, but as Tyler. A man clawing his way out of a pit someone else dug. We got close, slowly, cautiously. Late-night study sessions turned into long talks on the dorm roof, then into coffee runs, then into quiet moments where she'd fall asleep with her head on my shoulder while I typed out algorithms. She never judged me for being tired. Or angry. Or poor. But the world did. My world did. One rainy Tuesday, I came back to the dorm soaked from head to toe after a double shift at the library. I found a white envelope taped to my door. Inside was a formal invitation. Row Capital Partners Annual Gala. Black tie. High-profile guest list. The kind of event where interns prayed for a 5-minute conversation with my father. I'd never been invited before, not once, not even when I was under their roof. But now, here it was. Addressed to Mr. Tyler Rowe. I stood in the hallway staring at it like it might explode. Olivia urged me to go. Maybe they're finally seeing your value, she said gently. I wasn't so sure. But I went. I borrowed a blazer from a senior and used leftover grocery cash for a cab. When I walked into that ballroom, marble floors, champagne towers, people in tuxedos, it felt like stepping into a life that had tried to erase me. My father stood at the center of the room with Preston beside him, arm around his shoulder, introducing him as the future face of Row Capital. I approached slowly, unsure what I expected. Dad turned, his expression polite but cold. You made it, he said. Wasn't sure you'd come. I was invited, I said evenly. He nodded once, then turned back to the group. This is my other son, Tyler. He's a numbers guy. And just like that, I was dismissed. Preston gave me a half smile. You clean up nice, he said, like I was some pet he'd trained to walk upright. I walked away. I needed air. I ended up in Dad's office, tucked away behind the ballroom. The door was slightly ajar. I wasn't snooping, at least, not at first. I just needed quiet. But then I saw it. His laptop was open on the desk, a document still glowing on the screen. Succession planning, internal memo. I froze. Curiosity overruled decency. The memo was addressed to the board of directors. A proposal. To formally name Preston as the next CEO in training. With a full mentorship program. A pipeline of responsibilities. Bonus shares. And, this part made my throat tighten, a clause blocking any other Row family member from accessing equity unless explicitly approved by the current CEO. Which meant, me. I was being legally shut out. The backup was being removed from the equation completely. And then I saw it. A comment at the bottom of the document. From Preston. Make sure Tyler doesn't see this. He's clever, but he doesn't belong in leadership. Something inside me snapped. Not breakable. Not fragile. Not weak. But sharp. Focused. I stepped out of that office, left the gala, and didn't stop walking until I reached Olivia's apartment. My clothes were soaked from the rain, and my heart was soaked in fire. They shut me out, I said. My own brother signed off on it. Olivia stared at me, stunned. Why would he? Because he knows I'm better than him. And he's terrified I'll prove it. I didn't sleep that night. But I did build something. I opened my laptop and started writing. A plan. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for a future where I never had to ask permission to belong. That night, I stared at my cracked laptop screen, drenched in rainwater and rage. But beneath the anger, was clarity. I realized something as I typed. My whole life, I'd been trying to prove myself to them. To people who never saw me. Never wanted to see me. That ended now. I didn't want their crumbs. I was going to bake the whole damn cake. Olivia sat beside me on the futon, watching me with those soft, steady eyes. What are you doing? She asked. Drafting a pitch deck, I said. For what? For a future they can't touch. I didn't want to beat Preston by joining the same game, I wanted to change the rules altogether. I had a winning concept buried in an old notebook, a decentralized fintech platform that used blockchain to help underbanked communities access smarter investment tools. But I'd always told myself I'd pitch it someday. Someday became now. While Preston partied and coasted, I spent the next 4 months turning my vision into code. I worked graveyard shifts at the library and spent daylight in labs and co-working spaces around the city. I skipped sleep, meals, everything, except Olivia. She was the only thing that kept me grounded. And then it happened. Olivia sat me down one evening, looking nervous. I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. What is it? She pulled out a card. It had her last name on it. Olivia Bennett. My eyes widened. Wait, Bennett, as in Aaron Bennett? She nodded slowly. My dad founded Helios Capital. He's now on the board at Halcyon FinTech. I blinked. Aaron Bennett wasn't just some executive. He was one of the most powerful venture capitalists in the country. A kingmaker in the financial world. You knew this whole time. She nodded again. I didn't want you to think I was just another rich kid trying to play savior. I wanted to help because I believe in you, Tyler. Not because of who my dad is. But if you'll let me, I think I can get you a meeting with him. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to be mad. But I wasn't. She'd been there for every ramen night. Every all-nighter. Every breakdown. She never once tried to use her connections for control. She waited until I was ready. And now, I was. 2 weeks later, I was in a conference room overlooking the Chicago River, presenting my platform, Vest IQ, to Aaron Bennett himself. He barely said a word during my pitch. Just listened. Then leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and said the 5 words that changed my life. When do we start funding? That was the moment I stopped chasing validation. I started building a legacy. Olivia and I worked side by side for the next 18 months. With Aaron's help, I secured seed funding, then Series A. I hired a skeleton team, diverse, hungry, brilliant minds from schools no one wanted to look at, just like me. Vest IQ launched quietly. We didn't need to scream, we had results. Our platform helped low-income users invest pennies into high-performing funds, offered real-time education, and ran on clean blockchain code that made banks nervous. The user base grew fast. Too fast for Row Capital to ignore. Preston tried to act like he didn't notice. But then a trade journal ran a feature comparing my startup's growth to his firm's stagnation. That's when the texts came. Hey bro, congrats. Let's catch up soon. I didn't reply. They'd had their chance. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more stage to walk across. One more table to flip. Graduation. Graduation day. Columbia's campus shimmered in the late spring sunlight, its iconic columns and brick walkways humming with pride and ceremony. Students lined up in their caps and gowns, some laughing, some crying, some too hungover to care. But I wasn't feeling any of those things. I felt sharp. Every step I took toward the stage felt like a reckoning. Preston was already there, of course, posing for photos with our parents under the alma mater statue, flashing his Rolex, looking like the heir he always believed himself to be. Dad wore his usual navy suit, stern and polished. Mom had on designer heels and sunglasses too large to see her eyes. I wondered if they even noticed that I wasn't standing with them. Probably not. They didn't know what was coming. You see, a few months earlier, I'd received a surprise email. One of my professors, who had quietly tracked my startup's rise, had nominated me to be the student speaker at graduation. Apparently, Columbia's board liked my story. They said it was inspiring. They didn't know it was also explosive. I stepped up to the stage in my gown, the gold stole glinting in the sunlight. The crowd buzzed as my name was called. Tyler Rowe, valedictorian of the class of 20XX. I heard a few gasps. A smattering of applause. Olivia stood in the front row, next to Aaron Bennett and my tiny but mighty team from Vest IQ, all grinning. And then I saw them. My parents. Preston. All 3 frozen in place. Dad's smile was gone. Mom's lips parted in shock. Preston's eyes were wide as if he'd just realized the backup plan had taken center stage. Good. I approached the mic. Cleared my throat. And began. 4 years ago, I arrived here with a duffel bag, a stack of scholarship letters, and a $200 laptop. While some of my classmates had cars, condos, and family bank accounts to carry them, I had ramen. And faith. Faith that if I worked harder than anyone, I'd matter. But the truth is, I didn't work hard because I had something to prove. I worked hard because people I loved told me, without ever saying the words, that I wasn't worth investing in. There were murmurs in the crowd. One of the professors stiffened. I saw Preston's jaw clench. Good. They paid full tuition for my twin brother, his apartment, his car, his everything. Me? I worked nights in the library and built a startup from scratch while eating leftover cafeteria scraps. They thought they were teaching me independence. What they really taught me was fire. And fire, when it burns long enough, turns into something else. Power. Applause erupted, louder than I expected. I paused, watching my father look away, lips pressed into a thin, pale line. I launched my own fintech company while still a student. This week, VestIQ passed 1 million users. And last night, we signed a partnership deal with the Department of Education to provide financial literacy tools to underprivileged schools across the country. That was the part they didn't know. That was the execution. That deal was with a government contract that Roe Capital had tried, and failed, to secure just a year prior. I finished my speech with a calm smile and stepped off stage. I didn't look at them again. I didn't need to. The crowd roared behind me. Preston looked like he might throw up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the backup. I felt like the blueprint. The day after graduation, I expected silence from my family. Instead, I got a knock. Not on my dorm door, on the office door of my brand new corner suite at VestIQ HQ in downtown Chicago. I opened it and nearly laughed. It was Preston. His once confident grin was nowhere to be found. He looked tired, frayed at the edges. A man unraveling beneath the weight of everything he thought he deserved. "Ty," he said, voice low. "Can we talk?" I motioned for him to come in. He sat across from me in one of the leather chairs, glancing around the room like he couldn't believe this was real. My name, Tyler Rowe, was etched in silver on the frosted glass. "So," I said, leaning back. "What brings you here? Didn't expect to see you this soon after your public loss of composure." He sighed. "Look, I know you're mad. And I deserve it. But Dad's in trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh." He nodded. "Roe Capital is hemorrhaging clients. Your deal with the Department of Education. It cut us out of one of our biggest pipelines. And now investors are panicking. We're on track to be acquired if we can't pivot fast. And let me guess," I said, folding my hands. "You want my help." He didn't answer right away. "I know you probably hate me," he finally said. "But you're the only one smart enough to fix this. You always were." I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. But I felt something shift. This was the same man who called me just the back end. The same brother who signed the memo to keep me out of the company. And now, he was at my door, asking me to save what he couldn't handle. "I'm not going to fix Roe Capital," I said. "But I might buy it." His head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me. I'm talking to a few firms. There's an offer on the table. I'm thinking of acquiring the brand, stripping the assets, and folding them into VestIQ as a non-profit division." He stood up, eyes blazing. "You can't do that. That's our family's legacy." "No," I said coldly. "That's Dad's legacy." And he made it very clear where I stood in it. He paced, agitated. "So this is about revenge?" I stood, slowly walking toward the window. "No," I said. "It's about accountability." Then I turned back to him. "But since we're being honest, yes. Watching you realize you're not the smartest guy in the room anymore. That's a hell of a bonus." He stormed out without another word. But the real twist hadn't come yet. That evening, Olivia came into my office, holding her phone with a strange look on her face. "You should see this," she said. It was a news article. Julian Rowe resigns amid internal financial scandal. Apparently, an anonymous whistleblower had leaked documents showing that my father had falsified parts of Rowe Capital's quarterly reports to hide losses, likely in a desperate attempt to keep investors from pulling out. The board demanded his resignation. Federal regulators were now reviewing his records. And Preston? He was left with nothing but a smoldering empire. "Did you?" Olivia began. I shook my head. "Wasn't me. But I had a guess." 2 weeks later, I got a handwritten letter from someone I hadn't seen in years. Grandma Irene. She'd once been the quiet observer at family dinners, always knitting in the corner, never speaking much. Her letter was simple. "I've been watching for a long time. I knew your father was corrupt. I couldn't stop him back then. But when you made your speech, I knew it was time to act. I had copies of everything. I sent them to the SEC. You're the only Roe worth rooting for." Grandma, For the first time in years, I cried again. But not from pain. This time, it was gratitude. 3 months after my father resigned, Rowe Capital was acquired by a larger firm, at a fraction of its former value. The family name that once towered over Chicago's finance world was now just a footnote in someone else's portfolio. I didn't attend the shareholder hearing. But I did read the final press release out loud in my office, with a glass of bourbon in hand and Olivia sitting beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. Preston disappeared from the public eye shortly after that. Rumor had it he moved to Arizona to reset. I heard whispers about failed startups, unpaid debts, even a brief stint working under a different name for a boutique firm. But I didn't chase those stories. I didn't need to. I had my own to live. And that story was thriving. VestIQ grew into a juggernaut. We secured partnerships with community banks, government agencies, and even UN-backed initiatives for financial inclusion. Millions of people across the world were using our platform, people who'd been overlooked, underserved, or told they weren't worth the investment. Sound familiar? In interviews, reporters often ask the same question. Did your past drive your success? I never answered the way they expected. I didn't say I did it for revenge. Or to destroy Rowe Capital. Or to beat my brother. I said. I did it because no one else would build the thing I needed when I was 17. Truth has a way of rewriting history, doesn't it? My parents reached out once. A short, formal letter. No apology. Just a line about the family needing to reconnect and an invitation to a brunch in the North Shore. I never went. But I did send them a copy of the press release where VestIQ was named one of Forbes' top 5 companies transforming global finance. I highlighted my name in gold. I also sent Grandma Irene a basket of her favorite chocolate-covered almonds with a card that read, "Thank you for believing in the grandson no one saw. I see you, too." She sent back a single sentence. Real power doesn't yell. It changes the rules. Olivia and I bought a home just outside the city, a quiet, sun-drenched place with a home office and a garden out back. One morning, as we drank coffee on the porch, she said something I'll never forget. "Do you realize what you've done?" I shrugged, smiling. "Built something?" "No," she said softly. "You turned being discarded into a legacy." And she was right. I didn't just build a company. I built a life from the ashes of other people's expectations. I married Olivia 6 months later. Small ceremony. Just a few close friends, Grandma Irene, and our team from VestIQ. No suits trying to impress. No family who didn't show up when it counted. Just love. Just truth. And peace. Because in the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the version of myself I was told never existed. Not a backup. Not a burden. But the blueprint. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.